like mandates. The mandates work. Good. If somebody can afford insurance and decides not to buy it, and then they get sick, they ought to pay their own way, as opposed to expect government to pay their way.
Politics, as far as I understand it, is supposed to be a battle of ideas and principles. There are supposed to be things Democrats and Republicans believe in. Little annoys me more than when it's smooshed in my face that it's really not about principles, but about tribes pushing ideas the way corporations push products. So if the other tribe co-opts your idea, then you must turn against it because you're not really for ideas. You're just against that other tribe. Take, for example, Obamacare. It's based on principles embraced by Republicans as a response to Clinton's health care plan. In the guest spot today, J.D. Kleinke, a conservative with the American Enterprise Institute, who wrote an op-ed for the New York Times making the conservative case for Obamacare. Welcome to the show, J.D.
Well, thank you.
You write in your New York Times op-ed, quote, the architecture of the Affordable Care Act is based on conservative, not liberal ideas about individual responsibility and the power of market forces. The mandate is about personal responsibility, a hallmark of conservative thought. So why are conservatives against a conservative idea? Help me make sense of this. Is it just a desire to never do anything to help the president, even if it means turning your back on a conservative idea?
Well, yeah, and you said that, I think, in the intro to the piece. If somebody were to be sort of dropped from outer space and introduced to what we refer to now as Obamacare, they would see a plan that was essentially putting 30 million people into the commercial health insurance program as we find it today in this country. They would see a plan that requires people to take responsibility for carrying their own health insurance and, for the most part, paying for it. And it uses market forces to allow people to choose which plan that they're ultimately going to reward with their dollars. Those are very conservative ideas, and those are ideas that were formulated really not on the left side of the aisle, but on the right side by folks who were aghast at what they saw as some fairly massive re-engineering of health care around government-centered ideas during the Clinton era.
J.D., you received a lot of blowback from your colleagues. I got to be honest, I read the piece. I'm not surprised. Colleagues at AEI, Manhattan Institute, Heritage, Cato, across the board. And I want to just read one to you and get you to respond from Jim Capretta at AEI. What's surprising is the obvious superficiality of Kleinke's arguments. He either doesn't understand Obamacare and the conservative case against it, or has willfully distorted his descriptions of both to serve his case. What's your response?
Well, my response is that, first of all, I want to state something about the culture of think tanks. And contrary to what a lot of folks believe about think tanks, especially when they're confronted with information from the other side, think tanks are not these monolithic party organs for one party or the other. They are think tanks, and they involve a lot of difference of opinion. They involve a lot of different approaches. And whether we're talking Brookings or AEI or Heritage or CAP. When you're confronted with information from the other side, you tend to accuse, well, that think tank is really just an echo chamber for the other side.
But this is your think tank. This is AEI.
Oh,
there
I know.
are people at AEI.
Well, and you mentioned the others, and as it relates to the culture of AEI itself, we're dealing with 1/6 of the economy, and there is no right answer. And even within our own healthcare team at AEI, we have a lot of different approaches. Some of those, just to speak categorically, some of those are incremental. They're about fixing healthcare as we find it today. And others are much more broad brush. Let's start over. A couple of our scholars are very focused on scrap the whole thing, repeal and replace. Very, very systematic sort of control the lead on healthcare. I'm not one of those folks at AEI. I'm one of those folks who is very much focused on let's deal with the plan as we find it. Let's deal with the system the way it is. And that's why Jim and I have a difference of opinion on this idea.
J.D., I think the Republican response, the conservative response to the Affordable Care Act is symptomatic of something broader. And to me, it has badly damaged the credibility of the conservative movement over the last few years. And that is that the Obama presidency, if I had to define it, I wouldn't say it's really liberal. I wouldn't say it's conservative. I would say it's moderate. It's been incremental. You look at the health care plan, as you say, which has been very friendly to private insurance. You look at, they basically rescued Wall Street, saved Wall Street as we sort of know it. You look at the stimulus plan plan that was heavy on tax cuts, that was not probably as big as liberals would want it to be. You look at national security policies that were held over from Bush. I could go on and on. The point is this. Republicans confronted with an administration that showed time and again they did want to work with them and incorporate some conservative ideas. Republicans instead responded by simply saying, this is socialism, this is massive government, this is a threat to freedom. Has the conservative movement destroyed its credibility by responding so hysterically to what has really been a moderate president?
Well, I think both sides are at fault politically here. Let's go back to the fact that the health reform plan was passed in 2010. It was before the midterm elections, and I'll address that in a second. But let me talk about the political mistakes that were made by the Obama administration. Passing a plan through 2 houses of Congress it controlled, and not bothering to garner a single vote from the Republicans
But they tried to do that. How many? Look at the negotiations with Chuck Grassley. How many months did those drag on for? Olympia Snowe, she said she wouldn't do it because no other Republican would.
They had more time to try, and enough was at stake. And the bill is significant enough that they should have made more of an effort, because now managing the political damage, including the very irony of my piece and why I'm here, is that they have no political support. The conservatives, yes, and I will agree with you on the other point. The conservatives have not helped by abandoning some of these ideas and simply branding this thing a government takeover of health care, which is equally as unhelpful to all of us, hasn't done them a bit of good as well. By even the way they've branded this as Obamacare, as if that were pejorative, as if that were a negative, shows that there is political disregard and disrespect for the president. And I think that neither side really is blameless in something where we really all have a stake in health care working better, and to turn this into a political football where one side wins all and the other side loses all, the American people lose.
I think that's right, J.D. Kleinke. We have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Up next, a closer look at the voting bloc left out of modern politics, progressive evangelicals.